33 of Agencyphonics, and we're here today live with our guest Joss Ford from Enviral. But before we move over to Joss to have a really interesting conversation all about his agency story and also the environmental side of things that he looks after, or he focuses on, I want to just say a couple of quick thank yous as always. Pete and I would like to thank, first of all, Forecast, the project management software for agencies. They've been incredible sponsors of the show. They're helping us fund everything because we do this all as a not-for-profit. Just a reminder, it's our way of paying it forward with our community and with our it's our social enterprise, let's call it. And so, it takes a lot of resource and time and money to run everything. And Forecast has been wonderful supporters. Also, a massive thank you to Wirehive, who are always helping us in the background with all the technology challenges, let's call them, we're facing. They've been an amazing supporter of everything we've been doing in the community and also on the vodcast. So thank you to those two companies. We'll put details about them in the show notes. Check them out. And thank you to Caitlin producing the show today. We are remote again. Of course, we're in lockdown 2.0. Is that what they're calling it? But before I start today's episode, a former guest of the show, it's his birthday today, and he is a bit of a legend in our industry, Mr. Phil Jones. And so I just wanted to very quickly just wish Phil Jones a happy 70th birthday from Pete and I.
Happy birthday, Phil.
I'm sorry you can't be here to eat the cake. I'm going to eat your cake. But happy birthday. I hope you have a fantastic day. And we'll find a way to slice this message up and let him know. But maybe someone can send him a message in the meantime. So, Joss, it's such a pleasure to welcome you to the show today. And I want to just start by kind of I remember the first time we spoke and I just came off the phone feeling really enthused and just energized. And I think people say that about me sometimes, but you were like a breath of fresh air. Everything that you were speaking about, your approach to business, the ethical approach that you take, it's so authentic and goes through. And I just really wanted to start by just asking, how did you get to, give me a bit of a story about your background? Because you obviously went to university and started studying around the environment. So this is not just I'm going to start a business that's for good. You've genuinely had this kind of story building up for a little while now, haven't you?
Well, look, thanks for having me on, firstly.
Our pleasure.
I don't know. It's an interesting one because I think the first time we spoke, you were on a bit of an early morning walk yourself, next to a river or something. I remember just being, I'm speaking to Spencer, right, on the line, and it was pretty windy in the background. I think you just got the new AirPods or something, tech guy that you are, and we clearly share something. We clearly share the love of just being outdoors. I massively get energized from that, and. I'm from Herefordshire. My dad's got cows and stuff, which is pretty funny when I talk to some sustainability heads. And I'm farming background. I've got a complete love for the British countryside. It's just a phenomenal place. And every time, no matter what season it is, I travel back home or I get out into the single track lanes, and I'm just super energized. And then fast forward to when I was at school, when I was studying for my GCSEs, I remember being in geography and talking about renewable energy and solar panels and wind turbines and the fact that this thing that moved in some field in a different county was having the ability to power the light bulb that was in the room that I was in, And pretty secretly, because I was 16 or whatever, I was okay, I found that pretty cool, but I'm not going to mention that to anyone because I'm definitely going to be the lamest person in the room. And this is pre Elon Musk making renewables cool. And I just got really enthused by the fact that there was a really interesting future emerging, and I was the last breed of person who really remembers the dial-up tone on internet, and it gave this really interesting time in my life where I was like, right, things are just progressing pretty heavily. And I remember speaking to a teacher at school, and he's like, right, what are you going to do with your life? I was, all into music. My hair was down here. I was in a band, and I was like, I'm pretty interested by this whole environmental thing. But at the same time, like, I'm into business. Like, I've been an entrepreneur since I was young. You remember when those Livestrong bands came out?
Yeah.
Like, I remember buying a load of those in different colours and just like hustling them to people at the age of 9, and like swapping them for stuff. Like, money wasn't even a thing then. I remember swapping a pair of fake Oakley glasses for like a fake Livestrong band. Pretty funny.
Do you ever remember that story that there was a guy, wasn't there, once, Pete, and I think who traded up? He started off with a paperclip, and he managed to trade all the way up to a house. And I remember this being quite a big thing on the internet, and he literally swapped the paperclip, let's say, for a biro, and then swapped the biro for like a cup, and then and he worked his way up, got an old motorbike, swapped that for a car, got the car swap for a boat, did the boat up, swapped that, and just the caravan. And actually, I've always wanted to do that, but it sounds like the sort of thing you would have done.
I did actually do that at Reading Festival, I think in 2006, on the Sunday night after I saw Radiohead for the first time. And we walked around the festival site just swapping stuff. It's hilarious. I mean, we had like shopping trolleys by the end of it. It's so good. But yeah, so found a course called Environmental Business at Leeds University, and that's it. That's the one. Funnily enough, failed my A levels.
Good entrepreneurs.
But I failed it. I had to retake business studies, which is super funny at the time. Just my perception of business was very different to a textbook perception of business.
I think that speaks to this, Joss, to be fair.
Yeah, exactly right. There's only so much like Drucker that you can kind of reference, right? But I remember getting results and having Leeds as like the number 1, and then I think Dundee as the number 2. The only courses which in the country which are doing like business and sustainability as a joint thing, and just calling up Leeds, being like, "Yo, like, you need me." I'm like, I don't have the grades, but I'm coming to this university, and these are the reasons why. And they accepted me without the grades. Got in, and literally it was just perfect. It was the perfect course for me. I loved it. I would literally do anything to go back to that university. But in 2013, second year, it was like 9:15 in the morning. It was on a Monday morning in October, and Enviral literally just came to me straight away in a lecture. It was in social media and new business creation. That was the lecture theme. Like, how cool is that to go and study that? And the problem that I had was that I couldn't buy from brands who had this social environmental purpose. I knew that there were brands who really wanted to do better for the world, but I just couldn't find them. And I was just thinking, like, why can't I find them? Is it because they're super focused on setting up a really interesting business model, or are they focusing on R&D? Or look, like, if you are making a brilliant piece of clothing, or you're like disrupting the milk industry, for example, it's not your role to be a specialist in Facebook pixels or video structure or whatever that might be. Like, the breakdown for me was that the communications breakdown of brands who are really doing good, they might be doing that great stuff, but they weren't shouting about it. And then on the other hand, right, you've got these big businesses who weren't doing anything, but they've got huge marketing budgets, and they've got really good expertise, and they were shouting about the stuff that they weren't really doing to make them sound like they're doing loads. And that was a broken system for me, right? So my kind of thinking at the time was like, right, how do we turn brands' environmental messages viral? Brain went like this, as it always does, and it just comes out Enviral. This is what it does. This is
What year was this? And I'm going to draw curtains because this is live, as you know, and you can't control daylight, can you?
1 second. So this was 2013, and by the end of the lecture, I obviously first thing I did was like, I wonder if Enviral is taken as a web domain name.
It's such a good name. It's such a good name.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you read the name and it sort of just feels like it explains everything, right?
Appreciate that. Yeah, that's the communications bit, I guess.
Yeah.
Knowing when it's right, it's right.
The name just literally popped into your head. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, it's turning environmental messages viral, just merging them, And so by the end of the lecture, I bought the web domain name, like sketched the logo, which is actually pretty similar to what it is now. And was like, right, well, this is the part. This is clearly the thing that like I am going to be spending at least the first part of my real focus as an entrepreneur doing. At the time, like I was, like doing various side hustles. I had a speaker rental company at uni, which was just epic fun. I worked for Red Bull as the student brand manager, which was just like, look, they are the best marketing agency in the world, and they happen to sell soft drinks. But they aren't the soft drinks, as I found out. It was like,
they're a media business, aren't they? Really,
100%, right? And word of mouth was at the heart of everything that they did. And those principles that I was learning at the time was like, well, this is exactly what the world of social and environmental sustainability need. This is exactly what businesses who have got a higher purpose need to be able to shine out. And so, I mean, things progressed pretty heavily. Like I was like, this is obviously the thing I want to do. I wrote my dissertation on something completely wildly different in agriculture because I was like, oh, like, is this good? Surely, like, this isn't a good thing, to be really focusing on my dissertation on. I just need to just go and do it, right?
Did you not do like agri-tech or something like that? No.
Well, my worry with it, right, is that whenever I put an academic lens on something, I get bored of it. And so if I've got something that I'm really interested in, I don't want that to be soaked up by the fact that I've got to write an essay in it in a specific structure, because I'm just going to come out at the end of that dissertation being like, I don't want to do this idea now, even if it's good. So I'm really happy that was almost the case of why I did that. And but yeah, look, I was at Red Bull. I carried on with Red Bull in brand management at music festivals. I always had this Enviral thing kind of ticking on in the back burner. Always knew that was the thing I needed to do, but I really needed to go out and get some real world experience. I'm young, surely I can't run an agency. Went to a competitor in the soft drinks world in London. I was in London for like 4 months. It just wasn't ticking my boxes. I'm a country boy at heart. I remember it being kind of a pretty rainy October-November time a few years ago, and I Googled head of marketing jobs in the Alps, and 3 weeks later I was in the Alps. Never done marketing on my own before. Suddenly I'm in this pretty high decision-making job. A good blag on that Skype call at the same time. And look, I was out there for a while. It was brilliant because suddenly I've got like businesses who have got all of the budget and the brand recognition in the world, and it's really easy to market Red Bull. Like it's not hard. Everyone's backed into it already. But actually, when you've got really limited budgets, you have to be really creative. You've got to use your imagination. You've got to be resourceful. And actually, that's where I really, truly learned the need for communications and how that can have a positive impact on shaping people's decisions. I'm out there. This Enviral itch is just like, I cannot believe that these big brands are still getting away with communicating like that. It's just complete greenwash. And then I can't believe that these smaller brands aren't using their communication powers that are out there, whether they're the Facebook structures or the content structures that are actually really easy to put the lens of a brand into. They're not using them. And if they were, like, how better would our life be, and how better would our decision-making be in consumption? And so I was like, right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to sack this off. I'm going to go full time. So did that 3 years ago. Enviral.
How did you fund yourself when you did it?
Yeah. So basically,
how did you do that?
Yeah. So basically, my initial pot was £16,000. Set that up through basically 20% of the business, and sold that to a family member. And the rest is kind of where it is now. We're kind of 10 people based in Bristol.
With that 16,000, did you give yourself like a burning bridge of time to make it work? How did you sort of, what was the strategy there?
first thing is, so I was in London, joined the Google campus, got into there, gave me free office space. There was mentoring options, living with my girlfriend, rent free, really being like, yo, this is going to work. But like, obviously it's a bit sketchy at the moment. Then moved back into Cheltenham because just the price of living in London is just expensive, right? Too many temptations, and so moved out into the countryside, lived with my brother, just got my head down, just constantly got my head down, and just was resourceful. You just got to be resourceful. And look, like I set a time to launch Enviral. I think it was I can't remember when it was now. I'm not very good with dates, but 3 years ago. It was in December, and I pushed it back another half year because I was like, it's just not ready to go yet, and actually just waiting and getting those foundations correct. And I was doing some freelance marketing, just picking up some freelance marketing gigs, whether it was the club world, the events world, using some of the skills that I had just to fund it as we went along. Put the majority of the money into a website. Look, that's the best decision I've ever done. We've got first search term for all of our keywords that we want to be showing up for. And that investment was like, invest in the right things. Don't invest in actually you having to live, because that's not going to go anywhere for the business in terms of a digital outprint and footprint. So, yeah, man, that was it. That's basically it. And it's all kind of starting to hit along. Agencynomics.
Yeah.
That was big up Wes Hosey for introducing me to...
Oh, that was Wes Hosey who introed it to you. I forgot that was him. Okay, well, thank you, Wes, for that.
Big ups, Wes. So, yeah, we were in Accelerator together in Bristol. So I knew I wanted to move to Bristol. The first job I ever had was in the ski world. So when I was 18... I was like, all right, I want to be in skiing. I want to be in the outdoors world. I got a job at Snow and Rock. I drove an hour and a half every single day in a really beaten up Golf. I looked at it the other day. It was on £6 an hour, and making 1% commission.
Are you a skier or a boarder?
I'm a skier, man. I'm a skier. Yeah, because K2 came from you being in the Alps, right?
It did, yeah. I think what happened was because I I could ski when I started the business, and in fact, I went up to I couldn't think of a name for Blue Halo originally, and I went skiing, and I was just stuck at the top of the Alps going, what am I going to call this business? And then this guy he actually was a snowboard, K2 board, and he turned it around right in front of me, and I was like, and it had a mountain, and I just thought, that's what I feel like right now. I'm on top of the mountain. I've got a mountain to climb. And it just said K2, and so I was fairly for the first year. It was called K2. But I think you obviously, it's difficult because when I switched to boarding because the ski technology had run out. It sort of got to a point where it got stuck for quite a long time, and it was getting boring skiing. And then the boards became the big thing, and then in the background, all of a sudden the ski tech got really good, and then everyone young now skiing. And I keep saying I'll probably go back to skiing, but I jumped out of a helicopter beginning of this year, and when you're doing that on a board, I just don't know. I've got to go back and learn to ski again, So
man, just I guess the thing is part of it's being on snow, right? You've just got the concept of how snow works, how edges.
I love learning, right? So I will love going back and learning, but it's just I feel like I don't want to waste all of the knowledge. Well, every year I get a bit better on the board, and it's just that continued improvement.
I'll hit you up with Andy. Andy, based up in Leeds, he's the K2 rep of the UK. Skis, you're on it, man.
Yeah,
we'll go ski at some point.
Yeah, what a good story for K2 as a brand as well. How they inspired you, Spencer, to go into
Yeah, I mean the thing is, I want to talk about this with you, but this year when I went to actually I didn't really I went to Verbier, which is one of the only places you can heliboards, but it's not really my kind of place. I mean, it's a bit kind of polished, let's call it. It's Swiss, anyway, we had a great time, good friends. And on the day that we did the heliboarding down, I didn't even know where this conversation will go today, but one of my bindings broke on the board. And so it's not the best thing, right? You're off piste, you've got all the gear on, you're potentially risking your life doing this stuff, but all of a sudden transponder's on, you look down and your bindings come off your foot, and you're like, geez, I gotta hang anyway. And I've got new step-ons for a Burton, and anyway, got to the it was actually the board, the one of the clippings for the boot. But when I got down to the bottom, eventually I found the Burton store, and I noticed that they were a B Corp, and I hadn't noticed that before. It was actually next to the Patagonia store in Verbier, which was just you and I both have a love for Patagonia. And so anyway, so I went in and I took my board in and I said to the guys, like, hey, is there any way you can get a replacement part? And they were like, and there was like 3 of them, and they all looked at each other and they said, we'll see what we can do. And they went out the back, and 20 minutes later they've come out and they said, look, we haven't got the part, but we think we can fix it for you. And they found this part, they made it all work, they patched it all up. It reminds me, I should order the right part size now for next year. And they must have spent, 3 of them, 45 minutes to an hour fixing my board. And at the end of it, I said, guys, like, what do I owe you? This has been amazing. I'm really, the service has just been another level. And he said, don't worry about it. It's on us. And I was like, really? I said, I can't do that. I've got to give you some money. You've just like fixed my board. You've gone out of your way. There's 3 of you. And do you know what they did? They picked a tin up from underneath the counter, and it said Australian Fire Fund. And do you remember the Australian fires? I mean, it seems like it was a lifetime away, beginning of the year. And they said, just make a donation for the Australian Fire Fund. And so I threw loads of euros in there, and I walked out and I said, I am never, ever going to not buy from Burton boards ever again, because the one time it went wrong and the product, they were there. And so they deserve that B Corp because because like Patagonia, for them, we're here to make the environment, the world a better place. Oh, and by the way, we just happen to make great merchandise. Burton are taking the same approach, in my opinion.
Look, so my opinion of it is, look, like, these guys are outdoors brands. Like, everybody who works for them are outdoors enthusiasts. The founders, Jake Burton, died last year.
I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah. Oh man, he literally created the sport of snowboarding.
Yeah. Wow.
His story is phenomenal. But the thing is, when it comes to purpose and sustainability, and specifically environmental sustainability, like, these guys see the outdoors changing firsthand. They're not in, the 5th floor of an office block in Old Street in London. They are there seeing genuine change year on year. So I think that's why culture and the outdoors, and the outdoors gives you so much more, right? It's the nature, like, it never asks for its thanks, right? And it makes people, it shapes people.
I love what you just said then, by the way. That is so powerful, because I think like, for me, I obviously, like, grew up in Gloucestershire. Pete and I both live in Hampshire, and so we're both country people too. So we kind of we share that enthusiasm. But I noticed it's about 4 or 5 years ago when all the bees disappeared out of my garden. They just went. Mm-hmm. And it was like, and there was this big thing about it. And there was a couple of chemical companies that put chemicals on the crops that they were thinking could have caused it. I don't know whether they ever proved that. There was that terrible summer we had. If you remember, where the cloud got stuck. Do you remember that, Pete? Where the cloud got stuck over.
Neonicotinoids,
Hey, and we had rain for like 6 months over the summer. It was terrible, wasn't it? But that year, I didn't see any. After that, I never saw any bees in the garden. And so you're right. When you live in the countryside or you live outdoors, you notice when the flowers suddenly creep up in January, that normally used to come up in March, or suddenly appear in November when they would be dead. They'd be sort of dying away at that time of year. So you're right. When you're in the country, you start to see the changes in the environment a lot quicker. I never thought about it like that. And I guess if you're living in a city and stuff like that, you may not notice those.
But at the same time, like, if you do live in a city, you sometimes just got to pay a little bit extra attention. In April this year, like, lockdown was happening, there was 0 sound pollution. Sound pollution was just like nothing. There's no planes in the sky, and suddenly you notice loads of birds, because everything is just like taken down a level, and that's amazing. But at the same time, like, now that the world is starting to just like almost go back to normal to a degree, you just got to like have a bit of extra effort to say, oh, that bird is feeding. That's pretty cool, you know.
No,
Because otherwise, you don't think of it like that, right?
yeah, I mean, I can't. I mean, you've really. I think noise pollution was one of the most missed almost things of everything that's happened in the last 7 months, because like you, the motorway noise that the wind can carry to where I am, when the aeroplanes, you know, in the sky, that, you know, we put it kind of between Heathrow and where's Eastleigh, Southampton, Pete, and Bournemouth, and so I don't see any planes out the back, although the local helicopter station is not my biggest fan at the moment. The Chinooks bombing the house, but generally, like the noise pollution went, and actually, you're right, you can hear the wildlife again, and you can, and I think it's going to be a shame, isn't it, Pete, when it goes back?
I'm thinking one of the positive effects about what's happened over the last few months, if you look at the rural relocation that's happening of people from the cities moving more out to, you know, the countryside, is that maybe that will be a whole generation of people who are more inspired about the countryside and giving a crap about it, basically. So that's, you know, from what you're saying, I'd never really thought of it in that way.
Apparently, bike brands at the moment are just besides themselves with sales, and that's literally from people just getting on bikes, cycling out to the countryside, getting their goods of like fresh air and luscious green space, and getting inspired, you know, and that's epic, right? That is epic. So everyone's kind of not so focused on.
They're not grateful this year, Josh. You couldn't buy a bike. Like they were saying, we've already sold our 2020 allocation. If you want a particular model or brand, it's like a year waiting list.
Done. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the only negative impact that I've found, though, from the exodus, let's say, well, there's been some two other things. First thing is the light pollution too, because I've noticed that because there's more lockdown, I'm seeing better and no cars, motorway light. I see the stars so much better now at night as well. So that's been another positive. But the only downside, and I was telling Pete about this yesterday when we talked about plogging. Have you heard about plogging?
Yeah, man, 100%.
You're the first person that I've spoken to that's heard of plogging. So
1,000 points for a straw. You know, like
it's points. It's gamified.
Look, you can gamify. It's all about gaming, isn't it, man? The way that you enthuse people, especially youngsters, is obviously through making a little bit of fun competition. We actually proposed a plogging meeting in Bristol with one of our clients, and look, go for a run, have a little bag, have a little pair of gloves or a litter picker.
Yep.
You know, like 10 points for a classic Coke bottle because they're everywhere. But then like the poster boy of single-use plastic was obviously the straw, right? Why do you need a straw? Why not just pick up a cup and drink it? You know, obviously, you know, there's certain situations where, especially disabled people who need a straw, and that's great. But like, 1,000 points for straw.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a plastic straw, does it?
No, but the thing is that I don't know about you, Pete, but where I am, there's been this massive. Suddenly, there's a big influx of people living in built up areas that are locked down. They're trying to get out. So my local village is on a Saturday, Sunday must have 100 cars in it now, where people have driven to go for walks. I always find that quite ironic, but anyway, and can they just walk to the place? But maybe it's a bit harsh, a bit unfair. But as a result, all of the walks that I do, you started off by telling the story about the walking, because, you know, I tend to walk 6-7 miles a day in the morning, but all of a sudden I noticed the rubbish. I noticed that people were starting to drop things. And so I as much as it's great everyone, Pete, is moving out to the countryside, I just hope everyone understands that you can't just drop your litter on the floor.
It's funny that you started talking about this plogging stuff in the last 2 weeks, and we'd not spoken about this before, but it must have been 2 or 3 weeks ago I joined a litter picking group locally. On Facebook, because I'm of the same opinion. I'm like,
it's becoming a problem. So I've got a rucksack now, and I've got a picker in the back. I've got a bag. I've got a literally, recyclable bag at the back, and so I'm, now because I go out, it's a bit frustrating because you go out and you find you don't want to pick everything up, and it's got to. So anyway, I've got all the gear now. So when I do my walks now, all the gear.
Let's co-host a Bristol Agencynomics plogging session.
Well, we talk about this, didn't we? We do our walk and talks, Joss. And we're now thinking of combining it with a with a plugging session.
Because one of the problems when you're working in business, Pete, is it is hard to find time to do everything. It's hard to find time for, the family. It's hard to find time for yourself. It's hard to find time. And then you want to do some contribution in life and you want to help people out. I think you're trying to create more time to do more good. The good thing about plugging, but we haven't been told what it is, have we? It's walking or running and basically collecting.
Jogging.
Lot of people right now opening up private browsing and searching.
Yeah, it's nothing to do with dogging. It's nothing to do with blogging.
We should have 100% clarified this earlier.
Snogging. It is called plugging. It's a Swedish term, I think. Didn't they come up with it? I got told.
Definitely.
So
Scandi area, yeah.
Yeah, Scandi area. So I probably got. Now I've said the word. Now I've said that word. We're probably going to have to make this X-rated episode or something. So,
yeah, I was
why not just so go do those activities with the fam? That's what it's all about.
Well, yeah, I mean, and we will do for sure. Although daughter's stuck at university in York and son's at school all week as well. But I think and trying to get them on a walk at the best of time isn't easy. Teenage kids, is it, Pete?
Gamification, man.
But we used to do the geocaching stuff with them when they were younger. That was good.
Yeah, that's great. That is crazy. Like that's like this underground thing, isn't it? Like
they call them muggles. It's like a full Harry Potter. If you see a normal person, you call them muggles. Did you ever do geocaching, Pete?
No, we were doing the painted rocks thing.
What's that?
Oh, Sophie got well into it when she was younger. Basically, you paint rocks like with little messages on. You go and place them and hide them in different places, and then you can move them around and swap them with your ones and take other ones home and stuff.
Cool.
This is a massive underground thing.
Yeah.
I kept Lucy ordered this massive bag of pebbles once. And they set out their painting. And I'm like, what are you doing? And then she showed me like this Facebook group locally with like 5,000 people in it.
Wow,
mental.
But man, it inspires people to go outside, right?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Look, you need to do geocaching in the Alps. That is literally because like
really, you're snowboarding and skiing to find it. But
well, it's in the summertime. It's mainly in the summertime.
Oh, okay.
You can do it. I guess you can do it in the wintertime in the actual towns, but in summertime it's like I guess you could probably do it in I don't know. Maybe it is a winter thing as well.
Just off-piste. It's just on the edge of that cliff.
Literally, it's like go to the top of that peak, which nobody ever goes up. And there's somebody, and I think the concept is that you have to take something and leave something, right? So it's always changing these. And anyone listening who doesn't do geocaching has got kids. I can't remember what age. I'd say probably 5 to probably 12. I guess was when my kids do it typically. But we set up a couple of caches in the woods. There's one called the bow and arrow because the tree looked like a bow and arrow. And I still get notifications all the time saying people have found your geocache, and I'm like, I feel really bad because it's one of those things that we haven't done for 5 years. But yeah, I love that whole idea. And so what else? So, and obviously there was a big announcement yesterday. I mean, we're obviously talking more about worldwide issues right now rather than your business, but we'll come back to that. But then did you see the news last night? Yeah.
And it's funny because Pete and I both got Teslas. Must have been about 5 years ago, and I remember saying, and sometimes I do these things. I worked out it was the average age of a car on the road was 15 years. Apparently, the average age, is 15 years. And I thought, well, I reckon another 15 years we'll see, it being all electric. And obviously, yesterday's announcement saying that, there's no petrol cars to be sold by 2030 is an amazing progression, right? Because I I said 15 years, but I just thought the reality is.
Man, that's still 10 years though, man. I don't know. This is where my angle goes at. It's like, we've got a climate crisis going on. It's an emergency.
Yeah.
Why does that have to be 2030? Why can't it be 2020?
Well, I was interested in your opinion. So do you? Because for me, I think that's really quick, but for you, that's not. It's because I guess I've seen how long things take normally in society to get sorted.
Well, the thing is, I guess the movement that's going on right now in sustainability it feels quite new for a lot of people, but like realistically, people have been banging on about climate change since the 1970s. Prince Charles has been like talking about single-use plastic and climate change since the late 70s, and you've suddenly got in the 80s and the 90s this kind of grenade that was chucked in from big commercial organizations in the oil world, spreading this confusion of is climate change real or is it not? And then everyone was like, oh, yeah, probably just don't need to really react to this at the moment. Time goes by. Everyone's like, oh, actually, maybe we do need to react to that thing that's been going on. But in the meantime, all of this pollution and emissions that have been going into the world have been heating up our planet. It doesn't mean that like sustainability is a new thing from now and, oh, great, at least now we've got some targets that we can work towards. Like we're like massively on the back foot. And we need to progress this way quicker than 10 years, in my opinion, at least. I think we've got all of the technology and infrastructure that can be put in place right now for people to have affordable electric vehicles and have charging stations in lots of different places around the country. Like the infrastructure exists, so why delay that by another 10 years? Like I don't get it.
Is the battery manufacturing capability still there?
It's a really good question. So actually, we're doing a video on the life of an electric battery at the moment, actually, from the Nissan Leaf plant up in Sunderland, and how that basically gets produced and goes into an electric car. And look, I mean, you can drive 200 miles, like pretty standard on any electric car now.
Yeah.
And, I think that Elon Musk has been playing around with trucks that can go like 500-600 miles in the USA. That's crazy. Obviously, all of the money that is being put into the manufacturing of combustion engine vehicles for the next 10 years, like, why can't that be diverted into electric vehicles?
Yeah.
And why can't that be diverted into the infrastructure needed for electric mobility?
Well, I think it probably will be, because most of the manufacturers now, if they know there's a deadline, aren't going to start investing in new engines, are they? They're just going to see out the manufacturing of the old ones they've got. So,
and my thinking on it, right, is that people are like, oh, okay, right, so I've got 10 years to buy combustion engine vehicles, so I'll actually go and buy another combustion engine vehicle before there's an actual principle in place where I can't. Yeah. So it's giving people the leeway to say, oh, just, you know what, the next car you buy can be a combustion engine vehicle. Why isn't there?
I don't think it will be, though, because I'm not saying that but actually I said to my wife, I've been trying to get my wife to swap to a Tesla, like I have, because once I stopped using petrol at the pump, I was just like, I'm never doing this again. And by the way, my car does 300 miles, and actually if I drove slowly, could have done maybe 350, slower 350, could be even more efficient. So the range is definitely not an issue. You're definitely right. I think
the funny thing is that apparently, like on average, most people have to stop after like an hour and 45 minutes to go and have a pee anyway. So like
it does. There's no question that stopping and having to charge your car for 45 minutes. It is sometimes it, like when I go to get my daughter, it definitely puts an hour on my journey, maybe an hour and a half. But actually, in a world that really where we all should be slowing down a little bit, maybe that's not a bad thing in terms of
5 minutes to do some emails. Like,
yeah,
you'd
have to say something. But my wife, the point was, my wife said last night, she said, well, my car's the last electric car last combustion engine car we're going to have. ICE car, we call them. There's the last ICE car with internal combustion engine. That's what electric drivers call petrol driven cars, but fuel cars. But yeah, she said it. So I don't know whether you're right or not. I don't know whether people will squeeze one more in. I think they're going to lose the value, aren't they, Pete?
I'll give you my prediction. I think 2029 will be the biggest sale of petrol engine cars ever.
I think it'll be before then, won't it?
I think the last year people will suddenly go, oh my God, it's my last chance to buy a car with a petrol engine in it.
Yeah.
And my point about the
what happened with lockdown, right? Everyone knew that, 2 Thursdays ago, pubs were going to be closed. And on Wednesday night, literally every single pub was crammed. Yeah.
That's the pub. It was a restaurant.
And it's my anniversary, so I'm excused.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So you really think that's what will happen in 2029? Everyone will go out and buy a petrol car?
I think there will be a lot of people who will resist the change and think this is my last chance. So I think there'll be a big spike. And I think
they worry about warranties and all that kind of stuff for the car. Because I tell you what, by the way, if anyone is thinking about getting an electric car anyway, let me say a couple of things. Number one, imagine a life, car owners, where you don't have to do an oil change, you have no brake pads, there's no servicing, there are so many like financial advantages. Obviously the cost of electricity is a lot less than petrol. There is so many. I mean, obviously you miss the roar of the engine.
The barrier at the moment for most people is price and choice.
Yeah,
that's the only two things. There isn't enough choice for all the manufacturers, and they're generally, on the whole, 30-40% more expensive.
Yeah.
An electric Mini, which by the way is a fantastic car, is about 30 grand.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's ridiculous.
But that's economies of scale, and I think the other bit to it is like the sharing economy. There are so many cars in the world. There's enough cars in the world for
too many
vehicle companies to be making cars for another 10 years. Like, we just don't need any new cars which split out oil. We've got so many of them already, and they're brilliant and they do a job. But like, you know what? In Bristol, you can't even find a parking space the majority of the time.
No, we went to Bath last week, didn't we, for our annual strategy thing we did, and Bath's even worse than Bristol, I think.
Yeah.
So I totally get that. But I think.
Let's talk marketing. I'm keen because
I'm going to link. I'm going to do one of my links now. So it's clear that you've got this incredible passion around everything to do with the environment. You've got a great understanding of it, and so like all good business owners, when you're passionate about what you do and you love it, it must make you love your job 10 times more, because there's nothing more than putting what you love in life at the heart of what you do. What's that saying? If you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. And so how have you taken all of this now? How do you find the companies you're talking to? Are they all typically more ethically focused companies, or are you having difficult conversations with companies that aren't maybe that ethical or necessarily, but they want to switch? Are you helping those companies be better, those traditional models?
So in April, we split the company into two. We've got Enviral Evolve and Enviral Engage. Evolve is all around working with organizations to increase their sustainability roadmaps, like giving them almost a layout of what they should be doing and where they can basically go in the future. And then Engage is all around the kind of the communication side. So it's content, digital advertisement, PR, and strategy. And the whole point around that is that we kind of evolve organizations' sustainability roadmap and then engage their customers, fans, employees with that purpose. Now, that's given us a really interesting model within the industry, because we can actually work with, from the communication side, we have a really, really strict onboarding process. We turn down way more clients than we take on. And they really have to be practicing what they preach for us to do their communications. But the thing is that we've got loads of brands coming to us, and for whatever reason, they might not be ticking our boxes, or they just are confused by this thing. The sustainability world is confusing, and so is the marketing world. Like, our job, I guess, is to kind of mold both of them and use sustainability not as the primary communications output, as the kind of secondary thing, because the ultimate thing is that every brand should be taking social, environmental sustainability seriously, right? Mm-hmm. And that should almost just be a foundational thing. The taste or the quality of the product or the efficiency of the product is probably what should be the number one driver of that brand. But the people coming to us and saying, look, like, we don't really understand this. We want to get into this for whatever reason. Maybe it's competitors are doing it. Maybe they want to stand out in their marketplace. Maybe their employees are demanding it. They are confused and they don't know where to start. And you can't take this thing seriously without getting lots of people really enthused by this new direction and this vision. And so the consultancy side, which is Evolve, it's up and running. It's been a really interesting process from an agency perspective, because we've kind of got marketing agency side over here, and we've got a consultancy over here. We've got some pretty interesting, exciting things actually, which I'm speaking with Pete on Monday about a couple of other layers as well to the business. But it ultimately gives us the ability to work with our brands and our clients to make sure that they're actually doing what they're doing. And then when we do communicate, we're actually communicating with the knowledge that it's actually being implemented. And something that I've been working on personally is this this idea of a purpose-driven growth mindset, like PDGM, and like the purpose-driven growth mindset is exactly like the growth mindset approach in business, but it's around purpose. Because in the communication side of the business, what we've got is we're working with brands who stand for a specific thing in social and environmental sustainability, but they've just kind of got a little bit like cozy with that's what they stand for. Like from our end, a true sustainable brand is somebody who's always striving for more social and environmental output, is always trying to better themselves. The nature of business is that business isn't sustainable. It is a thing which takes things from the planet and consumes things. And of course, there's the circular economy, which is just massively exciting for me. But the approach to how businesses run and the strategies and how they run is it should always have that mindset which B Corp instills in lots of brands to continuously be better. And that's why B Corp works so well, is there's a point system. It's really like the stamp of approval. It's like the fair trade approval of ethical business. And there's no such thing as a perfect B Corp. There's no such thing as a perfect sustainable brand. What I'm trying to do, though, with Evolve is make sure that the brands who really care for social and environmental sustainability continuously improve, and they continuously set out a roadmap to be better and be a bigger role model into their industries and other industries. And the sustainability report is basically the core asset of our consultancy. And that sustainability report gives a baseline of where people are at, and then a vision for how they're going to go forward in the future.
I love that. So you're kind of like, it sounds like you're, it's quite a sophisticated model in many ways, because, most agencies, they kind of end up doing work and then eventually they move to this let me think for you, and by bringing in the consultancy you're able to kind of take all that knowledge that you've got, which clearly there is still a big lack of that knowledge in the marketplace. People don't know where to start. I agree with that, and I love that kind of evolving it forwards. I think genuinely all businesses now are in a world where business transformation is got so much momentum behind it. I mean, look at COVID-19. I've talked about this quite a lot, and how that's accelerated in many ways, many years, many businesses forwards. And I think all businesses have got to keep thinking about evolving forwards. I think Pete and I did a post the other day about how, we now have two strategy. We didn't do an annual strategy meeting anymore. We do a twice annual strategy on work, because it's moving every 6 months, and I could see that going to quarterly soon as well. And so I think what you're doing is dead right, and I think it applies even more so when it comes to thinking about about your ethical and environmental approach to running the business, not just sitting back and being.
Well, look, man, the way that I see it, scientists have done their bit. They've done their bit to raise awareness that this thing is happening. Now it is my role as a communicator, and it goes back to that thing you were just saying about. Do you love what you do? Of course I love what I do, but I just know that people who have skills in communications should be really applying those skills to making sure that they aren't selling, I don't know, another L'Oreal shampoo in a specific way and format of marketing. They're actually applying that to what the world actually needs right now, which is, a more thought out approach to consumption. And whether that would be the Patagonia model of don't buy 3 jackets, buy one, and make sure that it's from a brand who really cares about it, or it's a consumption choice in terms of what you put into your body. There is enough scientific evidence out there, and there's enough tick lists on how you can at least improve your footprint and make sure that you are living and consuming in a way which is not detrimental to our planet. And as an agency, I just wouldn't have the moral compass to be able to say, look, I'm waking up in the morning and I'm selling this other thing for another brand who doesn't really care about anything else apart from profit. That isn't a metric that we should be using anymore.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you about that is when you get leads and opportunities in the business, and you qualify these opportunities, how do you test those people that want to work with you that they share the same values that you do?
So we basically got a 2-page get to know document, and it's based around a number of different things. So, I mean, the first thing that we'll do is we'll see, we'll kind of get a marketing brief in, and before we go back to them and say, look, we need to assess if you're a social environmental brand and if you're the right fit for us as an agency. We want to know basically what you're trying to communicate and to who.
Yeah.
And the first thing that really flickers our attention is actually when briefs come to us for internal engagement, because the first thing that we see with purpose-driven brands is that you can't do external communications until you tell your internal workforce what you're doing and why you're doing it, and making sure they live those values. I mean,
well, that's the purpose first thing, isn't it? Over profit.
Exactly right. It's that element that at the very least, your team are your walking, talking army, and you see in countless times brands doing this social environmental campaign over here to say, look how great we are and look how futuristic we are in our marketplace, and everybody in the company is like, wow, I didn't know we did that. Do we actually do that?
Yeah.
And then basically it's the onboarding form. So it's there's loads of different questions on have you got any certification? Are you a B Corp? If it's a manufacturing company, like, is your manufacturing powered by renewable energy? Do you have anybody in the management team who are female or from a less represented background? There's loads of questions that we go on in really looking and assessing why people want to work with us specifically, because I guess like anything in the marketplace at the moment, we have a badge of, hey, these guys, they actually care about people on the planet, and therefore loads of brands come to us, and small and big, and they say, look, like, we care about this thing. Well, how much do you care about it, and can you prove that? Like, where is your sustainability report from last year? Okay, you don't have one. That's the first place that we start with. That's where you go in with your consultancy. And if it's something that's at all grey, every brand gets a say from the whole team. Like, we're not a big team. We're only 10 people. Everybody has a say on if we should work with them or not. We've only stopped working. We've stopped working with 2 brands. One within a month because we were like, whoa, I thought these guys were amazing, and they're really not. They're actually backed by a shipping company. And the other one being in the events world, and it was simply that they basically used too many balloons. that was the first metric. We're like, oh God, let's just total up how many balloons these guys use in all of their corporate and private events. That's probably going into well over multiple 6 figures. Do we feel comfortable with that? No. Are they going to change it? Probably too slow.
But do you not think that you could help those companies? Like, it's funny, I in a very weird analogy, weird kind of comparison, I remember sometimes when we used to do design work in the early days of digital, people would come to us with terrible brands, and the designers would go, we're not working with them because it's going to look bad on us, because they didn't want to change their brand. They wanted maybe some piece of digital creation put together. But I always used to say, you know what, let's build trust with them and let's work with them to change, because actually, it's better to be in there and try and change it from inside than it is to try and say, no, we're not going to work. Or I don't know, am I wrong? I mean, is there a way there?
I agree with that. That's one of the key reasons why the consultancy...
But they've got to show you, is that what you're saying? They've got to show you they want to change rather than...
Yeah, look, I don't want somebody to come to me and say, right, from the consultancy perspective, this is, and specifically in the element of like, right, we want to take environmental sustainability seriously. How do we do it? I want to see somebody who's genuinely passionate about that, rather than, can you do this for me? Because we need to tick some, government tick boxes.
Yeah, sure.
And, our competitors do this. My reason of why we have the consultancy and the agency is ultimately, pretty straightforward. We raise awareness of brands who genuinely do good. We get them into the spotlight. That gets them more attention. They get more leads or sales or email signups or attention because of their teacher brand content. That money can then be reinvested into social environmental good, whether that's R&D and packaging or it's further teacher brand content to talk about specific topics, and that will then get them more awareness, and that awareness will lead to competitive advantage, and other brands, either bigger or smaller or in different industries, will look at this brand and say, look, these guys did something really interesting there. Maybe we should take a leaf out of their book. And ultimately, the communications angle and using business as a force for good and using teacher brand content as a marketing asset for brands raises lots of different industries. And I love that. Like, that's the reason why I wake up in the morning.
And you, like, it's really clear, like Pete and I have seen how fast you've grown in the last couple of years. Like you've actually, it's clearly you're working in an area that where there is momentum, there is change. It's probably also clearly not enough people out there doing all the focus that you are, but it's great to see that change. And so I think I love the way you split it. I think I love everything you stand for. I think there's, a million challenges around, for most agencies around the ethics of clients, but it sounds like you've come up with a really good way to deal with that.
That's a really good point though, because all agencies in the UK and around the world want to have a social environmental project on their credentials or on their homepage, on their website. But the question there is like, okay, you might be working with a brand over here which is genuinely pioneering and doing good.
Yes.
Like, but morally, if you're working with brands who are genuinely at the same time destroying the planet, that doesn't work. Like you've got to.
So what you're saying is that if an oil company came to you and said, "Look, we're trying to invest in our future in a sustainable way with projects," would you work with them or not?
No, turn down straight away.
Really? Because I've asked that question before to another B Corp, and they said as long as they're demonstrating to us that they are genuinely trying to move away and they want help to to try and make those other areas more.
Yeah, but I think the main thing is like practice that in a sustainability report. Give me the case for that. Give me the case that if I go and work with Shell Energy to talk about their renewable energy, why are we doing that? Is that because you genuinely got a commitment to investing in the planet? Yeah. And I want to see the divestment from fossil fuel extraction, because last year their extraction and combustion, their fossil fuel budgets versus their renewable budgets it's just laughable. It's completely laughable. Their marketing spend was more than their investment into renewable energy, and that's a broken system. But look, obviously we're in a new world. We're in a really exciting time for all businesses to say, look, we are going to go in this direction, and we've got founders and CEOs out there who are saying, look, this is the route that we're going, and it's so exciting that it's the start of a couple of months' time. We're going to be in January. There are going to be people who are just going to be enthused by the word sustainability. The question I've got though is that it can't just be something that is looked at because it's a campaign opportunity.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I think what you're saying is so the 1990s and early noughties, everyone had a CSR link on their website, which was just there, lip service to maybe doing it was. And so I'm with you. I think that, but I think there is. I'm going to give people more credit generally. I mean, I've driven this electric car. I'm on my second Tesla, and I've had them for whatever it is now, about 6 years, I think, since it first came out. But I understand the challenges that BMW and Mercedes have. They don't just make parts for their cars; they make parts for a huge amount of things. Airplanes. There's an ecosystem, and if they suddenly stop, all the service garages all around the country, they all close down. All those people need to be retrained. Sure. There's going to be mass unemployment, and so actually, it has to be retraining, reskilling. I think there is. And I'm not someone who's in any shape or form, defending the need to change and change fast.
But there's a systemic change that needs to happen.
Yeah, there's a huge. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that happens, around all of those industries, and we're already seeing the high street a victim of that. We're seeing the event business.
At the same time, there are so many jobs in green right now, in sustainability.
Yeah. Oh, listen,
and right now, as an opportunity, people are thinking, okay, COVID-19. where do I go? Like, where do I go? Maybe I've lost a huge piece of my client base. Maybe I'm looking for a different
I agree.
job career completely. Go into sustainability. It's exciting. It's amazing.
I think one of the great things is that with the whole democratization of training, the lowering of cost, the internet making it more accessible, I'm with you. Listen, I started off selling clothes in clothes shops. I'm seeing a high street being decimated from COVID, D2C replacing it, but actually, I feel for those people who work in retail. But the reality is, they're going to have to get online training, have to reinvent, look at these new fast growth areas, where there will be jobs where they can contribute towards the planet being a better place as well.
In terms of training, the great thing about it is that when I went to university, there was 2 courses in the country which did business and sustainability together. There are so many brilliant resources out there now, and literally, like, if you're majority of listeners in this are going to be agency folk, and there are really bite-sized courses that you can do with the whole team. Like we've done it as a team. The carbon literacy training is probably the best resource to start off with. But then there's also establishments. I've done something with the University of Cambridge where it's an online approach that, you've got probably one of the most well-known educational institutes in the world who have said, not many people can come to the physical ground of Cambridge University and learn here. But this sustainability thing it's not about borders. It's a global issue. We are going to create an online course so that businesses and curious people in the space can come learn and then basically input what they've learned into their companies or into new trades. And that's like the barrier to entry to learn about this stuff is so easy. It's so there. Like it may start with the David Attenborough documentary, but it might end up as a master's degree. Like, if anybody is wavering on what they should be doing from a visioning perspective right now, it is environmental or social sustainability.
I agree. I think that's a fantastic piece of advice, and I think you're spot on with that. And I think I think we should maybe that's one of the big things that should come as people now, as unemployment has risen, in certain areas, event space, retail, airline industry, travel, those areas. It'd be a great thing to encourage and maybe more and fund more investment in training in those particular areas to drive more jobs. We're going to end shortly, but I want to ask you one more question about the business, because I think there's something that you've done that I think Pete and I wouldn't normally think is normal, but actually I think is a little bit of genius.
Go on then.
So you talked about your team size, but you've already brought in a head of people, haven't you? Or what's the title called?
Happiness and Development Manager.
Happiness and Development. So I've given her a promotion. Happiness and Development. Happiness and what? Sorry.
Happiness and Development Manager.
And what does that role do?
So basically, Jo's amazing. We absolutely love her. She sits in kind of 3 parts of the business. So ultimately, she makes employees and clients happy, and making sure that everyone's developing. Look, like, people often don't get happy in their jobs, in my opinion, because they aren't progressing, they aren't learning, they aren't developing in their skill set or in their careers. And often people aren't happy because of the overwork of different projects, understaffing,
deadlines,
clients, deadlines. In our space, which is really, really crucial, and it's the reason why I've brought her into the company very, very quickly. We deal with digital, we deal with sustainability, and those are 2 very, very heavy industries to be dealing with for specific people. And the mental health stress that can bring, especially when it's stats driven or analytics driven, or the fact that you need to actually go on social media sometimes to find inspo, which can be a really addictive thing, or it's the eco-anxiety issue. And something that I've kind of been talking about, the pre-traumatic stress issue of the eluding climate crisis that's happening. The more and more we get educated by this stuff, the bigger the strain on people's shoulders. So basically, we employ Jo to make sure that clients and employees are happy and developing, so that we can have really, really long-lasting relationships. And she sits kind of part HR, part strategy, and then part culture. In fact, in like an hour, we're doing like an online Zoom pasta making course with surplus pumpkins from around Bristol. And like next week, we're going to go be doing some volunteering. We're going to go hand out calendars, like advent calendars to lonely people in Bristol. And it's the ability to make sure that people are happy, not just in the 9 to 5 Slack, Zoom, account management side. We're actually getting all of these things that we practice, and that's where the B Corp thing comes in, like making sure that people are really thriving on that.
I think, just to end on that, I think, one of the toughest things for agency owners when they grow businesses, Pete and I see it, is that, you're trying to work sort of on growing the company. At the same time, your only asset is people. And so the people that actually help you deliver the services in most, marketing, advertising and creative and technical type agencies. And so bringing that role in early is it's not always something that can be cost effective for some agencies.
It's 100% the best thing we've done this year.
But it's great to hear that, and I think it's really challenging my thinking around how early you bring that role in. And
she's also completely responsible for NPS scores and feedback loops with clients, and that's what actually progresses us as an agency. And going back to the purpose-driven growth mindset, is progressing our clients from a sustainability and purpose perspective. Look, it gives us the ability to say, look, we took this on board. Actually, we want to go do something which is 10 times more bold next year. Okay, are you up for the ride? And they're like, yeah, cool, let's go for it.
Yeah, and I love that. I think it's a genius move, and I think I really appreciate you sharing that role with us.
More than happy to share like a job description on what that looks like for everybody as well. Yeah,
that'd be great to go into the community. I think that'd be really good. And I think, maybe Pete and I might even model it into some of our organizational chart models moving forwards, as we've developed a big series of kind of an evolution of flatter organizational structures that we think are really the way forward. So listen, thank you for your time. It's been wonderful talking to you. I feel like we're running out of time.
Yeah.
Pete's nodding quickly. He's got a call in 5 minutes. So thank you for joining us. Have an amazing pumpkin. What do you do? Whatever you're making.
Pumpkin ravioli making.
Amazing. Well, enjoy that. That sounds absolutely fantastic.
Can I also just note that, like, how mad is it that Halloween and now Black Friday are like holidays?
Yeah, I know. And I'm just loving the top, by the way. Slow down. There's no chance with you ever slowing down. The irony in your top is brilliant. So thanks for your time.
We could chat for hours, and I thank you guys for genuinely like shaping Enviral. The book has been brilliant. I cannot wait to see the next book in February. Little plug for you there.
Great stocking filler for Christmas.
Pushing the overconsumption message, Pete. What are you doing?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, the ebook could be better. Yeah.
Love it.
Great.
Nice one, guys. We'll catch you soon. Have a great rest of the day.
Cheers, Joss.
Cheers, Joss.